It's available as a cargo van. You can have it as a passenger wagon or a crew van. And this thing is available with a crazy number of configurations. This is the Ford Transit, and it's the full-size van. And when I say it's got a lot of configurations, like that is no exaggeration. It's available as the 150, the 250, the 350. It's available in the low roof, the medium roof, the high roof, with a regular, long, or an extended length wheelbase. And it's also got the option for single or dually for the rear wheel, and it's available rear wheel or all-wheel drive. It is kind of ridiculous what this thing is capable of. Now, this is going to be a walk around just showing you some basics about the Transit van. Well, a little bit more than a few basics. We're going to go over some different options for the interior, what's going on with the different measurements for the vehicle. But if you're looking for a more in-depth look, specifically at how these things can be configured even more in-depth, check down below for that walkthrough instead, because I've put together a crazy comprehensive one. Now, there are some pretty crazy changes for the 21 versus the 2022 Transit. Now, the 2022 is available with the brand new Sync 4 media screen, which that thing looks absolutely incredible. It's got the option for a 360 camera inside of it, which looks fantastic. Now, on top of that, the 2022 Transit is also available as the e-Transit, which is a fully electric vehicle, which is incredible. But here's the kicker. Good luck getting one for the 2022 model year. They've already pushed it out to 2023 at this point. So if an electric transit van is on your radar, reach out to your local Ford rep. Formula Ford in Pickering is also part of a larger dealer group. So if you've got two dealerships in Toronto and then the one in Pickering, they can help you put through a factory order for one of these bad boys if you need it. But at the same time, you need one. So this is a walkthrough on the full-size Transit van. If you're looking for a walkthrough on that smaller Transit Connect instead, check down below because I've already done one on the Transit Connect passenger van as well as the cargo van on top of that. But let's unpack the full-size Transit van and see what this bad boy has to offer. Now, the outside of the Transit cargo van is pretty straightforward. This thing is available in a series of different colors. I'm not gonna lie, this black looks really nice. Now here's the thing, if your local dealer doesn't have one of these Transit vans available in your color, you could always do an aftermarket full body wrap instead in order to get it to look however you want it to look. There are tons of different options that are available. But one thing about the Transit that's very, very simple, the wheels. So it's only available with a 16-inch tire. We do have a series of different options that are available for the rim itself. But series of things, this specific one is actually, I just noticed missing the hubcap, but you do have a few different styles and options that are available for the caps there. And I did mention it earlier, this thing is available either all-wheel drive, so it's an intelligent all-wheel drive, or it's going to be a rear-wheel drive. So it's going to depend on how you have the rest of the van configured, but overall styling is great. We do have a series of different options for our side view mirrors. We've got the options for heated, power folding, extending, etc., just depending on how you've optioned it from the factory. You could technically do some things aftermarket. It's just honestly getting the wiring in for the power foldable, extendable things like that aftermarket is pretty dang challenging. So if you're in the market for a Transit, just go in knowing you're probably like a 6 to 12 month lead time in order to be able to get one of these things. So if you need one, make sure you put an order in now so that you can get one within the next 6 to 12 months. It's honestly might get pushed to a 2023 model depending on which options you've gone for. Towards the front end of the van, it's really straightforward, very similar to what we saw last year. Different options for the grille depending on the version of the vehicle that you've got. We've got our Ford badge along the very front. And one of the great things is that the Transit van does have the option for a full 360 camera. So we'd have our side view mounted cameras, our front and rear facing camera, which gives us a full 360 view. The kicker, this one doesn't have that forward facing camera, which means we don't have the 360 system, but it is available optionally inside of the vehicle. Now on top of that, this one also does have the option, the Transit van, for the forward sensing system. So reverse sensors are going to be there, forward sensors as an option on top of that, which, I mean, it's amazing having that forward sensing system, especially if you're constantly going to be out of tight spaces, to make sure you're not banging this thing up a little bit too much. But we've got our nice plastic bumper along the front and the back end there. We've got a series of different options for our lamps and things like that. Options for fog lamps depending on which version of the vehicle that you're in. But the lamps and just the basic body styling, it's nice. It's a cargo van. It gets the job done. Getting underneath the hood of the Ford Transit van, it's pretty easy once you know where you're looking. So underneath this little cup holder, we've got our little release there. It's a little hidden, so just knowing that it's there, you just got to kind of dig for it a tiny little bit. But Lifting up, we do have our little lever off to the left-hand side there. Pop it open. No hydraulics for this thing, but at the same time, very, very easy to get underneath the hood. Now, the Transit van does technically have 3 different options for power. So we've got the 3.5 liter engine, the 3.5 liter turbocharged, and then there also is the e-Transit, which is the electric version of the vehicle. Now, as I mentioned, getting the electric Transit's going to be next to impossible, but I'll still have the different numbers for horsepower and torque that are going to be available inside the vehicle. But this specific one is the 3.5 liter engine, which has 275 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. So a good amount of power at the end of the day, and very easy access if you ever need to work in the vehicle yourself, if you're on the road, get it regularly maintained, whatever the case may be. But we could easily top up fluids as necessary. And then changing our oil ourselves is also very straightforward. But one thing, just make sure you regularly maintain your vehicle. Especially if you're going to be converting this thing into a camper, like even commercially, if you're using this thing, you want to make sure that you're going to regularly maintain it. So take it in for regular servicings and things like that to get the most possible life out of your vehicle. Filling up fuel inside the vehicle is also a very straightforward process. So as we go to hop out of the vehicle, just by the side there, we can also pull this little release, and we can also shut the door. So if you're worried about fumes and things like that getting inside, we just shut the door. It's got a nice kind of liner on the inside there to prevent any sort of fumes, leakage, and things like that getting inside. But one of the interesting things is that with this door closed now, we can't actually shut the fuel door again. So nice basic safety setting there. We do just have to make sure that we open up, close, and close that back down in order to be able to close this thing if we want to. But it's really that simple filling up inside of the Transit. Looking at fuel quality, just regular 87 gas. 87 octane is all you need to use inside of this vehicle. Next up, taking a peek at the key fob for the vehicle. So we've got our unlock and our lock button. We've got our door release, as well as our horn or panic alarm. And then this one, because we don't have intelligent access, is just our regular key fob. Now, getting into the driver's door, very straightforward. If for whatever reason the fob's ever died, all we're gonna do, just old school, just insert, unlock, and you're good to go. But hopping inside, nice look. All right, so nice and simple. We've got a little storage tray there, basic window up and down. We've got our controls there, so unlock, lock the door, our handle, storage tray there, and a little bit further down, we've got another little storage area. Now, there is a little cup holder just off to the side, our basic vent controls. And then we can also figure out what's going on with our side view mirrors. So one thing to note, with the side view mirrors, the upper part of the glass is movable, power. The lower part you have to manually adjust. So if you want that lower convex mirror adjusted, you do have to just manually press it in as necessary. But we can easily adjust the other ones there. We can toggle our fog lamps on off, figure out what's going on with our running lamps, increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen. Moving down, we do have our auto start stop system, so we can easily toggle that system on or off if we'd like to. We've got our electronic parking brake, and we've also got another little bottle holder there. And if we ever need to get under the hood, a little bit further down from that. So we've got our OBD2 reader up there, and then our hood release just underneath. Just gonna give that a pull if we ever need to get underneath the hood. But we do have a rubberized flooring there. A few different ways that we can adjust the seats with a series of different styles that are available on top of that. The first row of the Transit van is ridiculously spacious. Like, I'm 6 feet tall, and I've got almost 6 inches, like 7 inches of headspace there. So if you're taller, you'll probably be able to fit in this thing no problem. Now, there are a ton of different seats that are available inside of this vehicle on top of that. Like, this specific one has the regular cloth seats. We've got the option for the standard vinyl seat. There's an optional leather, so 10-way passenger driver leather seats as well. So it's going to depend on what your needs are, but so many different options. Now, this one, as I mentioned, is just going to be the 2-way adjust. Well, we can technically go forwards, backwards with it. And then we can adjust our backrest on top of that. So there's a little lever, left-hand side of the driver, right-hand side of the passenger, in order to move this thing as necessary. Now, on top of that, on the driver's side only, we also do have the option of adjusting our lumbar support. So it is nice, it's basic at the same time, but if you're just looking for a van, get you A to B, drop cargo off and things like that, it's a good option. If you're living in the van, you want something a little bit better, you can upgrade to those leather seats if you really wanted to, but it's going to be dependent on the rest of the van configuration. But overall styling inside of this, the basic styling isn't too much different from the 2021 Transit. But there's a little caveat to that, and that is this bad boy. the brand new Sync 4 media screen. So this thing is absolutely amazing. I love the look and the features, the functionality that are available inside of this screen. But let's kind of go through some of the basics at least of what's going on inside. So we've got some base kind of stripped down design itself. It's not too much, like it's nice and simple. We've got like a little rubberized feel for the actual dash itself, and that stretches across pretty much the rest of the body. Like it's nice, it's simple. If you're wanting to do some upgrades, you could do some aftermarket stickers and things like that, so like vehicle vinyl wraps, etc., in order to change up the dynamic look of the vehicle if you want something a teeny bit more unique. But a few things, we've got some power points along the top, so a USB port as well as a 12-volt power point. On top of that, we've got a little storage tray up over top. Same idea, lots of storage up over the top there. And this specific one doesn't have the overhead console, but we do have that as an available option. So if you want some extra storage there, it is available. We can do a bulkhead on top of that. So if you want to separate the first row from the cargo, you've got the flexibility to do it, either at time of ordering from the factory, but better yet, just wait and do it aftermarket, because there are so many different aftermarket solutions that are available for aftermarket bulkheads. But some basics of the wheel. It's nice, it's basic, it's the same wheel that we're looking at for Ford's vehicles. But honestly, this is going to be a shorter walkthrough, just looking at the basics of the steering wheel and cluster in that media screen. If you're looking for a fuller walk around, check down in the description, because I've put together some crazy walkthroughs on how this stuff works. But some of the basics, we've got a button on the tip of the left stick to turn our lane keeping system on off. We can control our high beams with the left stick. Stick on the right side is going to be for our wipers. We've got our base cruise control system with the option for the adaptive cruise control, so that's set it and forget it cruise, which this specific one doesn't have, but it is available there as an option. Our controls on the right hand side to be able to adjust what's going on with that little cluster screen. The entire steering wheel inside of the Ford Transit van is going to be a manual telescoping, so we can easily adjust as necessary to our liking. Now, a few other interesting things. We are going to be just a regular key, key ignition in order to start up, but inside of the 22s, we do have the introduction of the Smart Start. So the intelligent start, I should say. That's going to be essentially your push button start. So it is available optionally. You have to get it at time of ordering your Transit from the factory. But we've got our base climate controls there, so we can figure out exactly, fan controls. And then we've got some cup holders and things like that, kind of all over the place. Now, the Sync 4 media screen is optional inside of the 22 Transit. And honestly, it's an option I think you should probably consider. And the reason why, so it's newer technology rather than the older Sync 3 system, but it's better technology at the same time. We've got our factory navigation. This thing now features wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. But the big thing is that if you're going to be taking this vehicle anywhere, you're driving in reverse, so backing in it out of spaces, whatever the case may be, having the reverse camera show up on this big screen is absolutely beautiful. Yeah, we've got the reverse sensing system and things like that, but just for added safety, it's amazing. And a lot of different options that are available in this screen on top of that. And as we start to move down, so a few things to point out. We do have, as I mentioned, all of our climate control settings built directly into this screen, which I love the look of it, especially when we get into this climate control setting. I like to have it go windshield, face, feet, etc. I just love the base animations there. Like, it looks so nice. But from there, we've got our volume rocker, so we can easily toggle our audio on off. Actually, let me hide this, and you can see audio on off as we go. We can also, amazing sound, not too shabby for a little cargo van, but we've got our volume rocker there. We've got a button press in order to change between all of our different drive modes. We can pull up this screen. As you can see, there are a series of different modes available. So we've got our base normal mode. We've got eco, slippery. I love the little animations. So cool. We've got our tow haul mode. And then we've also got our mud ruts mode. So each mode is going to do something different. We have these little info buttons, which gives you a little bit more base information about what's going on with each individual mode. But honestly, like the two that you're really going to have to concern yourself with, if you're, I guess the three, if you're towing, then you're going to need the tow haul. If you're just regular normal driving, and if you want to be a little bit more eco-friendly conscious for your gas. So we're going to go eco mode instead. Button press that in order to hide it. We've got our max windshield defroster. We've got this little guy, which is going to bring us our calming screen instead. So if you want to get rid of all the busyness on the screen, we can button press there or press this button again in order to bring that screen back to life. And then we've also got our park, so we can have the vehicle navigate to parking on top of that. Now, one of the cool things is that the Transit also does have the option for our park assist. So if your vehicle supports it, it would show up as an available option when we push this button. As we start to move down, we also do have our four-way blinkers. We've got a USB power point, a 12-volt power point on top of that. And then off to the side, we've also got our shifter. So let's move you down a little bit there, and down we go. So as you can see, we've got our park reverse neutral drive and then our manual mode along the very bottom. We also do have our plus minus buttons along the very side of the shifter. So one of the benefits there is that if you're in the manual mode, you can then adjust what gear you're in as you go. So we can go up, down in order to change out gears as necessary. You can just kind of make it out there, but we do also have a few cup holders. Let's drop you down a little bit. So we've got a few cup holders there. And then we also do have, so this is the base one with no extra stuff down here. So let me brighten you up a little bit. So this is really it for this specific one. There's no extra console, but we do have the option for a larger console in the middle. You've got auxiliary switches, which also show up along the very bottom on top of that, but it's going to depend on how you have the rest of your vehicle configured. Obviously, because this one doesn't have the upfitter switches or any of those other options, we're just in our base with a rubberized flooring there instead. But as I mentioned, if you did have the auxiliary switches, there are different consoles and different options that are available underneath. And then this specific one is the Sync 4 screen. So the screen itself is fantastic, but obviously if you were on the older Sync 3 screen, this setup is going to look very, very different in comparison. So the shifter is going to be in the same place, but your climate settings on Sync 3 will be a little bit further down, similar to what we saw in the 2021 vehicle. But honestly, I do love the look and layout that Ford's done inside of the 2022 Transit. I think it looks fantastic. As we start to move up overhead, we've got some base controls for our lights. We've also got our all lights on. We do have our visor there. Different options for the visor, but this one's vanity mirror with the lights built right in. We can extend this bad boy out and it blocks all of the sun, which I love it. Like anything that's potentially going to hit your eyes there is fantastic. But overall, base styling inside of this thing is fairly nice. I think that Ford did a good job as always on their Transit vans. The kicker, I mentioned it earlier, getting into an e-Transit, so the electric Transit, you're probably not going to get it in the 2022. 2023s, you probably can if you get your order in early, but the lead time typically you're probably 6 to 8 months out, depending on how you have your van configured. So if you are getting a Transit van, just give yourself a ton of time because you probably are going to have to factory order one. All right, now taking a peek along the passenger side of the vehicle. So looking at the door itself, very straightforward in order to open this thing up, and it is on locks at the very back just to make sure that it's not opening and sliding all over the place. Now we do have different options for running boards and things like that, depending on the version of the vehicle we've opted for. So like you look at the passenger version, you can got that full-size running board as well if you want to, just to get in and out of the vehicle a little bit easier. But there are so many ways that you can have this thing configured, and like I'm not even kidding when I say that. Like this is the cargo van, and we don't have any fixed glass inside of this one. When you get into the crew van, you would have glass along the second row doors. You get into that crew, or you get into the full-size passenger van, and that's gonna have glass all the way around. And like, it's kind of ridiculous. Like you can have what, like 15 people inside of this thing. Like it's actually kind of ridiculous. Like I come from a family with 9 kids, and like that passenger van would have been perfect for us. We probably would have fought like crazy, but I mean, at the same time, if you're transporting people for church and things like that, the passenger van is a really good option. The crew van would just give us that 5-seat option. So we've got our 3 seats in the second row and then the 2 in the front. One interesting thing is that if you can't find any of those crew vans, you could look at doing an aftermarket install. You do have to get an installer that's certified with the National Transportation Authority in order to be able to get that installed there, but it is available as an option. So if kind of push comes to shove and you need one with a few extra seats, you could definitely do that aftermarket. But as I mentioned, for glass and things like that, you've got some different options, just depending on how you have the rest of the van configured. Towards the back end of the Transit, this thing is fairly nice. It's a cargo van. It's nice, it's simple. But we've got our Transit 250 badge. And I did mention earlier, this thing is available either as the 150, 250, or 350, with the big difference being how much stuff you're going to be able to put inside of it. So, I mean, there are different numbers that are going to be all over the place, but the Ford guides are a good start. Working with a Ford rep is even better. Watching some of the videos that I've put together, even better. But so many different options available. Because this one is all-wheel drive, we've got that all-wheel drive badge along the very back there, and our Ford badge along to the right-hand side. Now this specific one is the low roof, which means that we've got our backup camera that's down along the very bottom there, right next to where our license plate would be. If you're in the medium or the high roof, the camera would actually be positioned on the top of the vehicle instead, kind of pointing down. But we've got so many different options for the screen. And honestly, I do recommend, with the upgrade to that Sync 4 media screen, do it. If you're ordering one of these things from the factory for 2022, 23, etc., make sure you go for that Sync 4 system, because it just makes backing up infinitely easier, because you can see what's going on that larger screen. We do have our reverse sensing system. We've got our spare tire underneath the vehicle as well, so really straightforward at the end of the day. We do also have, as I mentioned, when we got to the front, we've got the option for the front-facing sensors as well. So we've got our front, rear sensors, and this thing has that full 360 camera as an available option, which is kind of nice. This van also doesn't have the tow package that's available from the factory, but you could do something aftermarket as well. Series of different options for towing depending on how you have it configured. If you're in the 150, 250, 350, which engine you've got, if you've got the regular 3.5 liter or the turbocharged, all over the place. But just kind of like basic numbers, between 4,500 and about 6,900 pounds is going to be your general towing capacity, depending on how you have the rest of the van configured. But if you're looking for a more in-depth look at the Ford tow guides, which I'll put the link in the description down below, and that's going to give you a better understanding of what this bad boy can handle. Now, looking at the cargo doors for the Transit, pretty straightforward. So once the vehicle's unlocked, we can just slide this bad boy open. Same idea. Left, perfect. Make sure it clicks as you open it up, or else it's gonna shut on you. But as you can see there, nice open, it's nice and it's easy enough to open these things up. But one of the cool things is that we also have the flexibility. There's a little unlock button that we can push. Extend out. So we've got a full 180 degree opening if we need it. So I love the fact that Transit vans have that available as an option. We can easily lock or unlock there as necessary by kind of flipping around on the door. All right, so cargo dimensions for the vehicle are going to be showing up. But as I mentioned, so this one is the 130-inch wheelbase, and it's also the low roof. So there is quite a little bit of space back here, but I mean, if you're using this thing as a camper, so I'm 6 feet tall, and being on my knees, I guess I don't really say that often, but if I was on my knees, so I'm just touching the top of the roof there. So with the low roof, it is fairly low profile, but low profile is useful, especially if you're going to be working downtown, because trying to get into underground parking with the high roof, it's good luck. But with this low roof, you're going to be able to make it happen, no problem. But so many different options that are available inside of this thing, except for different roof options. Like, I'm 6 feet tall, and inside of the high roof, I can stand up inside of the van, no problem. Versus right now, if I were to stand up, sanctuary! It's kind of ridiculous. Like, I can't stand up inside of this, but at the same time, if you want to create if you're using this as a camper van and you just need like a basic bed and things like that, it would work. But with that high roof extended, you can get a shower in there. You can build this thing up like crazy. There are some amazing things that people have done with the Transit vans, converting them into campers and full lifestyle vans and things like that. Now, there are other options, because one thing you might be able to see in this one is that it's got finished walls and a finished floor, because this specific one has the interior upgrade package, which is available from the factory. It gives us a nice thin liner for the flooring there, and we've got our nice finished walls. But I mean, obviously, if you're going to be upfitting this thing, you could do something aftermarket yourself. You could get bulkheads installed. So if you wanted to separate the first row from the rest of the van, you've got that option. So many, it's literally like sky's the limit. What's your imagination like? And that's what you can do inside of this thing. It's amazing. You could build shelves off to one side, a little bench off to the other. If you get into that high roof, you could have a mobile workstation if you're a woodworker, things like that. Like, there are so many different things you can do with this van. But this one, because it's got the interior package, we've got those finished walls, as I mentioned, and that floor. If you didn't have the interior upgrade package, you just wouldn't have this flooring. It would just essentially be the stripped down van, like what we're seeing overhead on top there. But size-wise, even in this one, it's actually not too bad. Like, as Amanda, I said it a few times, if you want it as a camper, so with me 6 feet tall, you could easily have a bed inside of this thing. Like, I'm 6 feet tall, you could have like multiple me's side by side, if that's kind of how you roll. But it's kind of nice that this thing is fairly spacious. But feature-wise, it's pretty basic back here. Like, this is a cargo van. Like, obviously, if we had the option for the crew van, we would have that second row. If you had the option for the passenger van, the seats here would be like all over the place. So many different options and configurations inside of this thing. But I like what Ford's done with it. It's nice, it's simple. The technology is really where it's at for the 2022 model. This is still pretty nice back here. All right, now a few other things to point out. Along both of the sides, so driver passenger side, we do have these little assist handles. We've got some on that second row by the door as well, and you'd have different handles depending on how the rest of your van is configured. But because this one's got the interior upgrade package, we do also have a little light control back here as well. Now, there are a few other things to point out, like we do have our mini spare tire underneath, which I already mentioned, but we've got the actual locking mechanism for it right along the back in the scuff plate. So it's kind of interesting, but just so right under there, we need our specialized tool in order to be able to get to that tire that's underneath the vehicle. But so it's so many different options. Now, there is an interesting little piece. I've been emailing somebody back and forth on it that might be mounted along the back. It's like this little black box. That's a potential rear mounted AC unit. So whether or not you get that AC unit is going to depend on which version of the vehicle you're in. Because you get into that 350, it will be back there. You've added it on as an option, it will be there. You could technically rip it out if you didn't need it, but you're just going to get rid of your air conditioning inside of your car, or inside of the van. So if you want to do it, you could do it, just knowing that as you do all these different things, you could potentially mess some things up. So one thing I'd recommend all the time is if you're doing different upfitting options and things like that, check with your dealer to see if any of the work you're doing may potentially affect your warranty. Because anything you do to these things could potentially affect it, even if you're building it into a camper van. But I mean, if you're building into a camper van, you don't care about the warranty anyways, it doesn't even matter. But if you want to make sure you're still covered off by that manufacturer's warranty, just run it by the warranty department for the Ford dealer that sold you to your vehicle. But that was a look at the 2022 Ford Transit van. What did you think? I love it. I love what Ford's done, specifically with the media screen. They did such a good job in that rebrand. And I can't wait to get behind the wheel of the e-Transit to see how that electric handles. Like, I love it. I love the fact that Ford introduced that electric Transit. Hopefully that means we get an electric Transit Connect, like that smaller van. Maybe, fingers crossed, but who knows. That was a look at the vehicle. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below and let me know. If you want to see the build for this one, it's down in the description on top of that. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your social networks, and think about subscribing. And until I see you next time, take care. And it's got the option for either single or dual rear wheel drive. And it's got the option for either single or dual wheel. The entire steering wheel inside of the cluster